Every year, the NFL draft gives us new players with new sets of skills. And Dave, we decided to do something fun here. We're going to take a look at all of the players that are most likely to ... We're going to go through the rookie superlatives. You and I, we did this last year. It's becoming a fun little tradition. We got to do it last year where we talked about, didn't you win like best face or something like that in high school? I forgot.
No, if you're going to make me bring it up again, my ex-girlfriend and I won couple most likely to get married after we had broken up at our
There you go.
senior picnic. Yeah, thanks for making me relive that one, Alfredo.
I'm really glad I brought it up because I actually did remember. I just wanted you to say it right here at the top of the show. But we're going to go through a bunch of different categories that we have here. So we've got, let's list them out. Fantasy Rookie of the Year, most likely to be a bust, most likely to get traded after their rookie year, looking at you, Joe Milton. Most likely to become a meme, looking at you, Will Levis. Most likely to become a league-winning handcuff, looking at all of you at the end of the last year, running backs. Most likely to be a 30-30 quarterback. That's quarterbacks like Jameis Winston, likely to throw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. Most likely to be a Swiss Army knife player. Most successful Nepo baby. That's my favorite one.
Which we have a lot in this class. Is
a lot
kind of crazy.
A lot of players old with NFL bloodlines.
Yeah, I feel old looking through a lot of the incoming players, like a lot of juniors next to guys that I used to root for back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a great feeling. Not a great feeling. But let's start off here. Fantasy Rookie of the Year. This is the juicy one that everyone wants to, I guess, know about because these are the players that we want to draft early, right? So who are you going with here for Fantasy Rookie of the Year?
I'll leave the chalk here and go with Ashton Jeanty. I mean, he is just a pro-ready
so
guy.
Brave.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back historically, there's been this big push to avoid first-round running backs because there were some busts in the 2000s. But you look back over the last decade or so, and first-round running backs have been pretty successful, especially those that go inside the top 10. You know, you're looking at Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette. I mean, you get a high floor and a high ceiling with these types of players. Now, there are a handful of warts in Ashton Jeanty's profile, and I'm not going to talk about him too much. You know, he's 5'8". You look at the list of NFL running backs that have found success at that size, it is a very short, pun intended, a very short list. I think Jeanty will be fine. You know, you look at this guy, follow up to the Heisman, you know, second only to Barry Sanders in single season rushing yards in college. He is a very, very good player, but he's also a running back, which we see really make that transition from the NFL to the pros pretty seamlessly, especially guys of this caliber. He's not a tight end. He's not a quarterback. He's not going to take years of development. He can come out week one and immediately be an RB1 in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at running backs this early in the NFL draft, you almost are playing with house money. There's very rarely do you see them fail even within their first couple of years. Even the ones that do eventually fail, the Trent Richardsons of the world where they're out of the league and it's pretty short-lived, they're at least decent in their rookie season. And then probably in second year, I think it's once you get to like years 3 and 4, Eddie Lacy, where these guys start to run out of steam. So it's Ashton Jeanty, I think, ends up, I mean, I don't know if there's anyone else I could probably put over him except for the guy that I picked because I just decided to be a little different. I do have an angle on this though. Omarion Hampton is the guy that I think could end up being the Fantasy Rookie of the Year. And one of the things, Dave, that you and I were going back and forth about before the show started is that you do have the slightest bit of worry about Ashton Jeanty because of his size. And it's not necessarily, not necessarily a huge thing, but you know, he is a little bit smaller. Omarion Hampton doesn't have that issue. 6 foot, 220 pounds, phenomenal athletic profile. We've comped him to Joe Mixon in the Football Guys Rookie Guide. And I think what kind of tips the scale for me is that, yeah, he may not get drafted as high as Ashton Jeanty, but in the range where he's looking at getting drafted, Dave, I mean, I've seen him mocked as high as 12 to the Cowboys, which would just be insane. I think we're also seeing places where he could go to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. I really hate the idea of him going to the Broncos at 20. And there's some other good spots here. I mean, I've seen Ravens at 27, Chiefs at 31. What I'm getting at here with a player like Hampton is that you see him getting drafted towards the end or the middle of the first round where you're going to have better teams, more scoring opportunities, more games where that offense can be in control of the game and run the ball. On top of that, he's just a good 3-down back. He's got the size, he's got the skill set, back-to-back seasons with 250 rushing attempts, over 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, and then really he's been hovering around 30 receptions per year where he keeps a good receiving average, David. I love his patience when running the football, the size, the speed, the combo, everything. Get him in a good landing spot, and I think Omarion Hampton crushes for people. And the last thing I'm going to say about him is for fantasy, where I think he becomes more valuable is he'll probably get drafted around later than a guy like Ashton Jeanty in fantasy drafts.
Around later. Oh, you're saying like in fantasy
In
drafts.
in
Yeah,
fantasy football
absolutely. Yeah.
drafts, yeah.
Yeah. I'm still in like dynasty brain and I'm just like around later. Like he's going to 102, 103. Like he is not falling in around two. But yeah, let's play a quick little game here where we'll
I
throw
like
around
games.
I'll throw on some hypothetical landing spots. We've heard a lot of smoke about Ashton Jeanty possibly going to Vegas at 6. And now
Mhm.
with Geno Smith there and with, a decent pass catching weapons, I think that's a nice landing spot. But you got Chicago at 10, which is a smash landing spot with the improvements they've made to their offensive line, Ben Johnson, things like that. So let's say we get Jeanty to Las Vegas and Hampton to Chicago. Who do you prefer?
Oh gosh, I think it would have to be Hampton in Chicago because I think that offense is just going to be so much better.
I lean there too. And we look at 9, New Orleans. That's where I mocked Ashton Jeanty because Alvin Kamara
Thanks.
approaching his age 30 season. I think that there'd be, 1 year where they can kind of split the backfield and then they can prep for life after Kamara. But that's one where same thing. Like if Hampton goes to, there's a lot of landing spots, Chicago, Dallas, Miami. I'd prefer Hampton with any of those teams more than I'd prefer Jeanty with New Orleans, at least for 2025.
Yeah, and I don't even think JT makes it that far. I really don't. Like, I think he's going. I'd say at worst, I think he's going 10. I don't think he makes it past the Bears if he falls to 10.
Right.
Oh well, I just realized the Saints are at 9, so it's possible. But yeah, I don't think they're throwing that kind of draft capital on a running back right now. The way that the Saints are dressed up with their cap situation and their roster.
I've seen, and this is the time of year where mock drafts do get a little weird and people start forcing some things. But I've seen some mock drafts where you've got Jeanty, Hampton, and now Travion Henderson is starting to get that smoke as well, all off the board before pick 12 or before pick 15. I mean, Henderson seems to be the forgotten guy in this draft. And I think people by nature just say, well, we're not going to have that many running backs go in round 1. So Henderson's going to go in round 2, but Henderson could sneak into round 1. Judkins can sneak into round 1. I mean, this could be a very, very top heavy running back class.
Hey man, there's already rumors about that there are 3 running backs expected to go in the first round at least.
Yep.
So we could end up with 4 all going in the first round. Nothing would surprise me with the way this class is set up. Now, let's go to a category where the players would surprise us, and that's most likely to be a bust. Dave, you got a name here that I think is going to, it's going to incite some comments on the YouTubes.
Yeah, Ted McMillan. And first of all, I think that, looking at all of the receivers here, I don't think that any of them is near that Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison type of prospect, which first of all, I want to say like Marvin Harrison, disappointing rookie season, still pretty good production wise and showed a lot of things that we can get excited about for the future. But there's nobody in that class or in this class that has the type of ceiling we've seen. I can go back even further. Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Jamison Williams. We're not seeing those types of guys in this class. Now, Ted McMillan is the consensus wide receiver 1, but there's a lot of red flags in his profile. And we've seen guys like this succeed, Mike Evans, Drake London, a lot of the guys that we really like, but we've also seen other guys like Kevin White, the big physical guy who thrived off of contested catches, not succeed. So when you look at a guy like Ted McMillan, not the best separator, really thrives on contested catches, but even that, his contested catch rate wasn't that great in college. We were talking about it pre-show. Matthew Golden, a guy who is 6 inches shorter than Ted McMillan, had a better contested catch rate on balls 20 plus yards downfield. So McMillan can be very good, especially if he's in a system that kind of highlights him as the X receiver, getting the ball on short throws, letting him make plays after the catch. But he isn't this landing spot proof guy. I think he's a little bit more scheme dependent. And I don't want to say that he's assuredly going to bust, but when I'm in my rookie drafts, all these running backs that we were talking about, I prefer them over Ted McMillan. I prefer Cam Ward over Ted McMillan. If Shedeur Sanders is going top 3, I prefer him over Ted McMillan. And that kind of pushes him into the back half of round 1 in my rookie drafts.
Yeah, Ted McMillan, listen, I'm not going to get cute with it and not going to say that he's likely to bust because I think he's too good of a player with too good of a floor to have that big of a struggle early in his career. I think it depends on what your expectations are. I think that in a rookie draft, if you're taking him at 1 or 2, yeah, you're probably setting yourself up to fail. Landing spot's going to be so critical for these guys, Dave. It's going to be so critical. If he ends up on a place like the Saints at pick 9, I'm worried because he's attached to Derek Carr for at least a season, and then you get a rookie quarterback where you're rebuilding, and then you've got Chris Olave in there, and there's going to be situations where Tet McMillan might not succeed, but I think he's just too damn good. So I don't love calling anyone in this class likely to be a bust, but
Yeah. Also,
I
when
can
you
see what
say
you're
a
getting.
bust though, it's not like most likely to bust. Yeah, it could go to like, a day 3 guy that probably isn't going to pan out, but when I think of a bust, I think of a guy who has very lofty expectations. So I was trying to think of guys that are going to command first round draft capital that might not pan out. I mean, yeah, if you want most likely to bust, it's probably going to be Kyle Monangai or Jaden Blue, but
Well, it's not really
how are
that's
the
not bust.
expectations for those guys? Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's not bust. That's just
Right.
most likely to not be. So yeah. All right. The guy that I went with here, and I think a lot of people have continued to prop him up, Dave. I know you are your people. You are people. I went with Trey Harris here, wide receiver out of Ole Miss, and listen. I think he is fine. I think there are players that are prospects that have potential. That when you find a player like this that has potential, I'm cool with drafting them as a project. Where I'm not cool with drafting them is in the end of the first round in the NFL draft or early second round, where that player is going to have expectations early. They're going to be asked to do things early where they're going to need to win against NFL talent and be a big part of an NFL offense early. And if they don't have a complete skill set, the NFL is not the place where these players get to have a lot of teaching. When you're put out on a practice field, you're not typically getting taught how to win routes. You're being asked, do it now against NFL competition. And that's my problem with Trey Harris. He's got the limited route tree. He's not a great route runner to begin with. And even when you start to look at the contested catch stuff, he's not always consistent with that. So Trey Harris, I don't know that I see a full route tree for him that he's going to be able to utilize in the NFL. The speed is average, the size is average. And I think that a lot of what he does has been, or what he doesn't do, has been masked by that Ole Miss offense. And I do get worried that a player like him jumps into the NFL the same way we've seen with, I mean, the Quentin Johnstons of the world and the Jonathan Mingos of the world and other guys who we had lofty expectations for that had big potential that just don't quite make it.
Yeah, I get it. And I mean, there are definitely some warts in his game. I like where I've been mocking him, which is at 29 to the Commanders, because they have a lot of capable veterans there right now. They've got Terry McLaurin, they've got Deebo Samuel, they've got Zach Ertz. They're not a team that would draft Trey Harris and immediately say, like, well, you're the guy, you're our number one. They can kind of take a similar approach to what Buffalo is doing right now with Keon Coleman, where they say, hey, we're going to let you kind of run some vertical balls and get your feet underneath you your rookie season and then
Thank
maybe
you, Keon
expand.
Coleman's another one. Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's, hey, we can kind of expand what you did your rookie season going into year 2. I think he does need that developmental plan because at Ole Miss, they didn't ask him to do a lot. His slants, screens, and verts is pretty much all he ran. On the rare occasions they would ask him to do more, I did see some promise there that he could develop into a better player, but I don't think he's that pro-ready guy now. So the lack of development and usage at Ole Miss could definitely push him into day 2, but I think if he does go to the end of day 1, Washington makes a lot of sense for the reasons I laid out. You could also look at Baltimore being another team that has gone to the round 1 wide receiver well often, and they've got the guys right now with Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman and now DeAndre Hopkins. They wouldn't need immediate production from Trey Harris either. But when I see over 5 yards per route run in college, that's just so tough for me to ignore. I see the size, I see the contact balance, I see the body control. There's a lot of things I like about Trey Harris, but he's probably a guy that is going to have a disappointing rookie season, and then you hope he can break out in year 2.
I just think the league has been littered with guys like this, where you look at the Jalen Hyatts of the world that have these phenomenal yards per route run, or I mean, we've run into this so many times. The Treylon Burks, we're like, man, superstar player, he'll learn how to run routes at the next level. Quentin Johnston, he'll get better at dropping the football. And I think that just ends up being the problem is these guys don't get that opportunity to learn. You're just asked to go and be good at your job. And that's where I get worried with a guy like Trey Harris. But all right, Dave, next one on here. A player who is most likely to get traded after their rookie year. And this is probably, I think, like just, oh, your dog loves this topic. But most likely to get traded after the rookie year. I think it ends up probably being a quarterback for both of us, because it's just those are the kind of players that do get traded because they have a high value and they usually end up getting a spot start where you're like, ooh, okay, this guy's got some potential. We just saw it with Joe Milton. So, Dave, who are you going with?
Very similar to Joe Milton. We saw a guy really tear up the preseason, look good in a meaningless Week 18 game. Jalen Milroe is a guy that I think that if you look at his entire body of work, there's some disappointing games in there, and there's a lot of flaws in his game. But if you look at the highlight reel, I mean, he's one of the most exciting players in this incoming class. And I think that if he gets one start in the NFL where he is able to kind of showcase that upside, that's going to make him an alluring trade target a la Joe Milton, just like we saw last year. So he's one of those guys that I think the upside is there for. He got invited to the NFL draft over the weekend, which I think surprised a lot of people. But I had him mocked to Pittsburgh in my last mock at 21 overall. He's one of those guys that I see like 5 years ago, I think he would have been a first round pick, maybe even a top 10 pick. But because we've seen guys with similar archetypes over the last few seasons, we've seen Trey Lance and we've seen Justin Fields and we've seen Anthony Richardson, these toolsy guys with big arms really not do very well in the NFL. I think that's caused teams to kind of sour on him a little bit. So my dog's driving me nuts right now. I'm so sorry. Give me a second. I'm kicking her out of my office.
I kind of want to leave this in the pod. I'm not gonna lie, I really do. Your dog's a big Jalen Milroe fan, and I don't hate it, Dave. I don't hate it. If there is a quarterback that I think could have one of those games where you're just impressed with the ability, with the arm strength, there's always a team out there that says, "Man, we can make this work." They do the Arrested Development meme where they're like, "Did it work for those people? No, but it could work for us." And I think it just happens, man. Like they're especially if you go into, I think next year the rookie class at quarterback is going to look a little bit better. But I don't know. I haven't looked forward, so maybe the free agent class is awesome. I have no idea. There's always a team that's willing to do it.
And I think the thing is, like, it's very much so a copycat league. And we saw,
Yeah.
a while back, we saw these guys come in, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, these guys that were kind of rawish prospects, but they had the tools. They had the athleticism. They had the big arms. And because those guys panned out in the NFL, then teams started reaching on the aforementioned names, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Anthony Richardson. I don't think that just because of a few bad years of those guys panning out means that the NFL is just completely done with these quarterbacks now. If Jalen Milroe ends up getting drafted and hitting his high-end range of outcomes, he can be a complete difference maker. So I think there's going to be at least one team out there that's still going to take the chance. And even if it doesn't work out rookie season, there's going to be another team going into 2026 that says, hey, we'll take Jalen Milroe now at a discounted rate because he didn't work out as a rookie.
I'm going to go along the same lines as you because I think that when you're looking at a quarterback that could get traded after their rookie season, it all comes down to tools and how toolsy is that player, right? It's do they have a strong arm? Do they have elite athleticism? What do they have that makes them stand out, that makes a coach say, I can fix that? And for me, I'm putting Tyler Shough on this list because Tyler Shough is one of these guys. He's got incredible arm talent. And he's not necessarily a rusher, but he's very good at extending plays. And he's one of these guys. He's got, Dave, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years of college experience. He was Justin Herbert's backup at Oregon. Like, the dude has been playing since the Civil War era. So he's going into the NFL as a 25-year-old rookie. And if he goes onto, let's say, an LA Rams team, right, where Matthew Stafford has to miss a week, and then boom, Shough comes in, has himself a really good game, and then, hey, you're relegated back to the bench, buddy. Stafford's given us a couple more years, whatever it might be. All of a sudden, some team is saying, well, we're not in position to trade up in the draft to go get a quarterback. We have a guy who's going to be 26 in the prime of quarterback years. We saw he could be good in the NFL. Let's go out and get Tyler Shough. And I could see a team doing that. I mean, we saw Josh Rosen got traded 1 year after his rookie season, and he was a top 10 pick, didn't look particularly good. And he didn't really have any elite traits, maybe some arm strength, but even then, like, there wasn't much. I think it's going to come down to someone that has traits. I don't think we see a Riley Leonard or a Quinn Ewers end up getting traded. It's going to be one of these guys that are tantalizing for an NFL GM or an NFL coach to want to take over. I think that's why we still haven't seen Hendon Hooker get traded anywhere, because he doesn't necessarily have some sort of elite trait that stands out.
Yeah, and I think Shough is one of those guys that teams are going to be allured by, and he also dealt with some injuries throughout his career. I don't know how much development there is for a guy who's been, what, 7 years now in college, I think. I think he
6.
may have already 6, yeah, he may have already fully developed. I don't know how much the room there really is to grow after that sort of collegiate career, but, yeah, looking back at some of his numbers from early in his career, it's kinda funny. I was, going back and watching some old Tyler Shough tape, and I was like, "Is that who I" Yep, that's Juwan Johnson out there that he's throwing passes to. He's been around for a bit.
Dude, he's been doing it forever, man. Hey, you know what? Teams like experience. So
Mhm.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they trade for him. All right, next one on here. Most likely to become a meme. Dave, hit us with it.
Shedeur Sanders, I think he already kind of is, and I don't know.
Yeah.
This is a tough question. If you want to, I didn't want to double up. There was a name that I saved for later in the show that I think is really most likely to be a meme. But Shedeur Sanders, he's got the Hall of Fame father, lofty expectations. He's never shied away from the limelight. You see him with the watch celebration during the games and whatnot. I think that especially if he ends up going to Cleveland, which looks like they might go Travis Hunter, but if he goes to Cleveland, that's just a meme-worthy franchise. If he goes 3 to New York, that's a big market where he's going to have a lot of lights on him and a lot of primetime games. You just look at the teams picking at the top of the draft, and a name like Shedeur Sanders, I think it's only going to be a matter of time before we are making a lot of jokes at Sanders' expense.
That's a really good one. I'm not going to lie. Like, I can see it already. Even just the way his interviews are so interesting because I feel like there's no way you're 50-50 on Shedeur Sanders. You either love him or hate him.
Yeah.
Because like, his personality is that he's so confident that you either see it as abrasive or you see it as just a strong leader of men. Like that's the way so many football coaches put it. So I could absolutely see it.
Such a crazy draft season too for Shedeur Sanders. Like this is a guy we're talking about him. Is he the number 1 overall pick or is it Cam Ward? And then a month later, it's like, well, maybe he's actually more of a round 3 pick. And now it's like, oh, actually, he's going to go in the top 3 again. Like his value has just been a roller coaster this entire draft season. I tend to think that somebody is going to want to take the risk on the profile and the production from college. I'd be shocked if he falls outside of the top 10. But again, we'll see how this plays out. And that's another one. Maybe that's how he ends up becoming the meme is he's that guy sitting there all of round 1 with the Will Levis camera on him, just not getting picked as they get deeper and deeper into the first round of the draft.
I said it in February, and I'm going to say it again. I think Shedeur Sanders goes to Cleveland. And I think that's just what they do. They go Shedeur Sanders. They end their nightmare of the Deshaun Watson thing, which they have already publicly admitted was a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that. And I think this quarterback reigns supreme. I know we want to love all these other prospects, man, but I still think Cleveland ends up going Shedeur here.
Yeah, I mean, Schefter is all in on them taking Travis Hunter now and using him exclusively as a wide receiver. And of course, it's a lying season, as Cecil Lammy likes to say. We have no idea what's actually going on now, but that will really change the calculus in rookie drafts. If Travis Hunter goes 2 overall and they say he's the wide receiver 1 with no target competition, then he might be a top 3 dynasty rookie pick at that point.
Oh, I'd love that. I was going to use Travis Hunter as my most likely to be a bust because we just don't know what position he's going to end up playing. And GMs and coaches could lie to us. Like, we have no idea what they're going to do here. I went a different route here for most likely to be a meme. And instead of going with the quarterback, I decided to go running back here. And I think this guy just fits the bill. Cam Skattebo. It's just a fun name. So you already got that. You got a fun style of play that he just loves to just absolutely destroy defenders that are in his way. I think Cam Skattebo becomes a really fun player that when he gets that chance to do anything in the NFL, I think that not only are fans going to love him, the coaches are going to love him. We already saw like what he could do culturally as this sort of, I don't want to call him a pop culture icon, but sort of a football icon where it's just the lore of Cam Skattebo lives on more than the actual production over at Arizona State in those final games. And I don't want to do the thing that everyone does where you compare a white running back to another white running back, but I'm going to do it because it's just looking at us in the face. We kind of saw this before with Peyton Hillis, where he went and had a good season and then jumped on the cover of Madden, right? Like there's just a thing about it. It's like seeing a unicorn. You just don't see a lot of these guys. And if Cam Skattebo is out here running over dudes, becoming a fun player, I think he's going to end up being a big time meme for us on social media.
I mean, he already was when he was barfing on the
Right.
sidelines, and then shortly after barfing on the sidelines, there's pictures of him out at a bar the night before, which he claims he wasn't drinking,
Barfing at the
says that he
bar.
was
Oh.
just exhausted. But I mean, he's already a meme in and of itself. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just the way he plays with that tenacious style, he's going to be a fan favorite for sure, and probably going to get pushed up a little bit higher in fantasy drafts than he deserves to be.
Most likely to be a league winning handcuff. I actually thought about using Cam Skattebo for this one, but Dave, I'm very curious to see who you have here.
This is tough. I wanted to go down the list because when I think of a league winning handcuff, I'm trying to think of a day three guy. You know, Omarion Hampton, Ashton Jeanty, Travion Henderson, Quinshad Judkins, Caleb Johnson. Those guys are going to be drafted high enough that they're going to get opportunity. Even if they're in a backfield with another player, they're going to be splitting touches. They're going to get their opportunities right out the gate. I think a guy that I like, that I've talked about a lot on this show, Tahj Brooks, is going to fall to day three because he's going to be 24 years old his rookie season, and that age is going to scare people away. But you look at his production from college, he was extremely productive. He is a pro-ready running back, listed at 230 when he was playing in college and showed up to the combine about 15 pounds less than that. So we don't know if we'll beef up a little bit to play at the NFL level or what, but this is also a Matt Waldman favorite. And I heard him on the couch talking with Sigmund Bloom a couple days ago, saying that he just turns lemons into lemonade. Like there were so many times when he could take a 2-yard loss and turn it into a 1-yard gain, or get stopped at the line of scrimmage and then still turn out that extra 2-3 yards. And that's the stuff that might not be the flashiest in fantasy football, but it does earn you reps and get you an opportunity on a roster. So because of the age, he's probably going to fall in around 5, round 6, round 7. But if the opportunity comes, we know that he can handle 250, 300 touches a season if it comes down to it. And he's a guy that I think could surprise a lot of people if the opportunity arises.
Yeah, just gonna agree to disagree on this one. I'm still the Tahj Brooks hater. I think I've got him. Yeah, running back 23. That might move up
Sheesh.
a little bit. That might move up a little bit, but I can't get Tahj Brooks into my top 18. I just can't. To me, there's so many other players that are so much more athletic than he is, but I agree with most of what you said there. He's got some great footwork. He's good at making guys miss in a phone booth. I just don't, there's not the breakaway speed there. The vision is often clunky, but he can catch the ball. He can carry the ball, and we've seen him get the workload in college.
Yeah.
I
And
just
we've
I was
seen,
I was disappointed when he didn't weigh in as big as he was listed, and then he
yeah.
just also ran pretty average. Like to me, he's in a sea of a bunch of other players like the Jarquez Hunters and the Kyle Manung guys that are just they're just running backs.
See, that's where I disagree. The 40-yard dash doesn't mean anything to me for running backs, and that's why like I'm not
It
going to
means
move
enough.
Bayshaw Tootin. I mean, the data says that it means almost nothing. I mean, you look, there's almost no correlation between a running back's 40 time and what they do in the NFL. We've talked about this, but the two most important drills are three cone and shuttle, which Tahj Brooks smoked both of those, posted elite grades in both. So like I've got better athletes behind Tahj Brooks in my rankings. Bayshaw Tootin, Ollie Gordon, Raheem Sanders. Those guys might all be better athletes than Tahj Brooks, but Tahj Brooks is just a better running back. And at the end of the day,
Mm.
that's what I expect him to be is a good running back. He might not be ripping off the 80-yard touchdowns, but I think that he is good enough that he's not a liability on the field, and that gets players snaps.
I think my favorite thing is us arguing about Tahj Brooks, and then when he gets drafted in the 6th round and doesn't play as rookie, like it's not going to matter because we were both right. I think that's my favorite thing about draft season. All right, I'm gonna give you my guy here, and it's a running back who I've been on for a while, and it's LeQuint Allen, the running back out of Syracuse. And Dave, you say that when you think of a league-winning handcuff, it's a player that's getting drafted on day 3 of the NFL draft, and I don't think LeQuint Allen quite has the profile that you're looking for out of a running back that you're going to draft in the first 2 or 3 rounds, maybe. I think he could potentially sneak into the 3rd round, but I think it's more likely he ends up being a round 4 or 5 pick early on day 3. And so much of it is because of his receiving work. The guy is, in every sense of the word, a wide receiver. He can line up on the line of scrimmage, run routes out of the slot. He can run out of the backfield. He's a good pass blocker. He's got the ability to be a 3-down back. He's plus 200 pounds. He tested well at the combine, 220 plus carries in back-to-back seasons. And the touchdowns, just insane. The kid has production, and I say kid, literally, he's 20 years old. He still has so much time to develop. Like, this is a very good prospect that I think he's going to be a guy that's going to get utilized early in his career in a receiving role because that's what you're drafting him for. But if he has that moment where he's called and asked to do more, I can absolutely see him being that league winning handcuff who's getting 15 touches in a game. You get him 11 or 12 carries and get him another 4 or 5 catches. This is a guy who's going to be extremely fantasy relevant if that happens.
Yeah, I could totally see that happen. Just because he does have the upside. He's more than just a running back. He is a pass catching machine. So if he does come in and gets a huge target share, the fantasy production could definitely follow. I do have some concerns about his running style and his frame. He's a very slender guy. I feel like his points are almost going to have to come in the receiving game. But yeah, the upside is absolutely there for LeQuint Allen. I've got him as my RB10 in this class because of that upside alone, just a few spots ahead of Tahj Brooks.
Tahj Brooks, 5'9", 214 pounds.
230 playing weight, 214 at the combine.
Oh, come on. Who's dropping 16 pounds like that?
I think it's pretty easy to drop weight when you're, especially after the season. We see it happen often. I mean, you look at Tahj Brooks; he's got that bowling ball build. Like that is not a 214-pound player on the field.
I mean, he's 5'9", 215. That's what the regular person looks like, David. 5'9", 215. People are bowling balls. Like it just happens. Okay, I'm sorry. Like Miami, we're full of Cuban people that are all about that exact build: 5'9", 215 pounds, and we're the tallest Cubans around. Okay. All right. Next one on here. Most likely to be a 30-30 quarterback, just like our boy Jameis Winston. Dave, we have the same one on here. Jaxson Dart, the quarterback out of Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is a risk taker. I think he's the only one that I think really qualifies for this title. Again, I'll go to the Matt Waldman appearance on the couch with Sigmund Bloom last week, which you should definitely check out if you're watching this show. Two of the smartest minds over at Football Guys just talking it up about some prospects. But he said Jaxson Dart does this thing where he likes to throw the ball directly at defenders with hopes that it'll hit him in the chest and then pop out the backside and into the receiver's hands. Doesn't work out that way. I think Jaxson Dart is not a first-round talent. I think any team that drafts him in the first round is going to be a little bit disappointed by it. But if a team does take that chance and drafts him in the first round and gives him a 17-game leash, 30-30 is definitely in the range of outcomes.
Yeah, Dart's just a guy that, like, when I see him, he allows his footwork to suffer so much, and he really puts those balls up for Trey Harris to try and go and snag it. And there's a lot of times where I'm watching film and I'm saying that should have been a pick, or that got lucky, or there's just other times where I'm like, that ball wasn't even close to the wide receiver. Like he missed everybody. And so there's times where you say, man, Jaxson Dart, he's got the goods because he can toss the ball deep. He's got the arm strength. He's got the play extending ability. He's got all the athletic stuff that you look for. There's just things that need to be refined. And that's, I think, the thing that worries me the most is players that are not refined. You can tend to coach that up. Quarterback, I think, is the position where those guys get the most coaching up when they go to the next level because they do spend that, especially a guy like Dart. I would not want to see him get drafted super early and then be asked to start games in the NFL because I think that's just going to be an absolute nightmare. I've been seeing mocks where he's going 21 to the Steelers, and I don't know, man. If they do sign Aaron Rodgers and he's officially there, and then Dart is the backup, it's a little different. I just don't see them getting the backup quarterback in round one.
I took hell for my mock draft last week where I had the Steelers going with Jalen Milroe over Jaxson Dart at 21. They very clearly need a quarterback. Nobody knows what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think the Steelers want to go into camp with Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson battling.
No, they said they're comfortable. Spot. They said they're comfortable, Dave, and I believe them 100%.
They said they are. Yeah, the same way that I'm comfortable camping when it's 10 degrees outside and I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag. No, they're not comfortable with that, but they might delude themselves into thinking it right now. But Jaxson Dart is like another Kenny Pickett. They did this a few years ago when they drafted Kenny Pickett in the 20s of the first round. Like, I don't think they're going to make that same mistake again. But also, you look at the archetype of quarterback that has worked well in Arthur Smith's offense. It's a mobile guy, and they tried it last year with Justin Fields and Russ Wilson, and it didn't work out with either of them. But even going back further in Arthur Smith's career, he got Ryan Tannehill, former wide receiver, playing the best football of his career at a quarterback position. So I see this guy Milroe with the athletic abilities as a rusher, and I see him with a big arm, and I look at the investments that they made at wide receiver in George Pickens and DK Metcalf. They have two guys that want to get vertical and get deep downfield, which opens up the rushing lanes for Milroe. I really feel like this would be a great fit for Milroe if they did that. And I think if they do take Jaxson Dart, they'll just regret it and make the same mistake they made a few years ago.
Oh baby, give me Tyler Shough on the Steelers. I want it. I need it. All right. Next category here. We got two more. Most likely to be a Swiss Army knife player. Dave, who are you going with?
Savion Williams, high school quarterback, came into college as a running back and then ended up playing some wide receiver and played some tight end and was their wildcat quarterback. I mean, he did it all. He is a positionless receiver or a positionless player, I should say. I mean, this guy literally can do it all. He's 6'5", just an absolute giant. Everybody's making the comps to Cordell Patterson because it makes sense. And Cordell Patterson was a guy that came in as a wide receiver and then kind of found his footing on special teams. And then in year 9 transitioned to running back and was very successful there. I don't know if that's the exact trajectory Savion Williams is going to follow, but this is a guy who can line up at running back and line up as a wildcat quarterback, is big enough to play inline tight end, can get in the slot, can get out wide, can kind of do it all. A player that can very easily bust because we see these positionless players very rarely actually find a role in the NFL. But if he's drafted to a team that has belief in him and wants to scheme some plays around him, he's got the size and the athleticism that he can kind of be that Swiss Army knife type of player.
I would love to see him just be a Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
That's it. He weighed in 6'3", 222, ran a 4.49, so he's right there at that 4.5 mark. I think he's too tall to be a running back, doesn't quite have that movement skill to be a running back. I don't think he's quite refined enough to be a wide receiver, but I think there's a team that can turn him into a Taysom Hill and just let him sort of play that Joker role that like the Broncos have. I would not be surprised if you see a Savion Williams get drafted to learn from and play behind Evan Ingram and
Yeah.
start to learn how to be the next Taysom Hill for the Sean Payton offense. I think that would make a ton of sense.
What about the Steelers too? I mean, we saw Arthur Smith was the one that unlocked Cordell Patterson. I know I just
Yep.
talked about Jalen Milroe there, but imagine
Yep.
an offense where you've got Jalen Milroe under center, you've got Savion Williams in the backfield, you've got Darnell Washington at tight end, and then you've got DK Metcalf and George Pickens on the opposite side. I mean, you've just got a team full of giants out there and athletic and fast giants at that. I mean, might not work, but I could see Arthur Smith being the kind of madman that would draft Savion Williams and scheme up a handful of plays for him.
I think Savion Williams is one of those guys that probably on the talent and the finished product right now should be a day 3 player.
Absolutely.
But I think someone could convince themselves to take him on day 2 because they could just say, man, so much athletic potential. It happens every year.
And this is how the NFL changes because Cordell Patterson, like we said, a very similar prospect, was a first round pick over 10 years ago. And then people realize, hey, maybe these guys with positions, it takes
Laviska
the
Shenault.
stars to align. Exactly. Like the stars really need to align for a player like this to break out. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But that's where you roll the dice on day 3. Savion Williams is the type of guy that would have been a first rounder 10 years ago. And now I think teams have kind of realized that these players typically bust more often than they pan out.
Kadarius Toney. I'm just going to keep saying more names like it. My guy here for most likely to be a Swiss Army knife, I went with the chalkiest of chalk covered in more chalk. And I went with Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. And I think it's just the obvious stuff that we've already seen. Over 1,400 scrimmage yards. Last year, 12 touchdowns. They have 26 rushing attempts at the tight end spot. They're lining him up in the backfield, putting him as the lone running back or in a split running back situation. Sometimes he's the wildcat quarterback, but he ends up with 4 rushing touchdowns last year. And I think we can all agree he's getting drafted in the top 14 picks. And we saw with Brock Bowers last year and with other tight ends in the past, if a tight end's getting drafted in the top 15, he's going to get utilized a ton. And I don't think you're drafting Tyler Warren and going, man, you saw how they were making him run out of the backfield in college? Well, that's stupid. Let's not do that. Teams are going to be using that. And especially you put him on a team like the Indianapolis Colts where they're going to have an Anthony Richardson and they can do some sort of crazy formations down by the goal line. Get Tyler Warren in there running his own tush push. You keep your quarterback safe. And I think that teams are going to love to do that with Tyler Warren. Get some of those little like underneath flip passes that you see Travis Kelce taking from Patrick Mahomes. Like there's going to be a lot here for Tyler Warren where I think when we look at him, especially in dynasty rookie drafts and fantasy drafts, when we're making our rankings, I don't think we can just look at him as a tight end. I think we're going to have to look at him as a tight end who can do a little bit more and be almost a running back at times, because that's what he's been able to do in college. So I love Tyler Warren as a player, as a prospect. He's, I think for obvious reasons, my tight end one. And Dave, I think he's going to be a lot more valuable than we've given him credit for, especially in fantasy.
Have you seen the play where Tyler Warren lines up as center against USC?
Yes.
Snaps the ball to the
Yes.
quarterback, then they flick it out to Drew Alar, who's lined up out wide, and then Tyler Warren just runs up the seam and catches a touchdown like 40 yards downfield after snapping the ball. Like, that's the type of athlete this guy is, the type of versatility he has. I think he
Flag football players everywhere were writing that down in their playbook.
Exactly. There's going to be a name for it at some point, I'm sure, but just such a versatile player. And he's not the Brock Bowers level of athlete. You know, Brock Bowers is just a different type of player out there, but does a lot of the same things and does, he's a little bit bigger as well. So Tyler Warren's one of those guys that I'm in complete agreement with you. He can line up and throw the ball too if they really need him to. Like, there is so much trickery that they can have with a guy like Tyler Warren out there. Love that play. Just a guy who really is also, I was just talking about positionless players. I think Tyler Warren is an inline tight end, so he does have that position, but it's a very loose parameter on what he can do. He can move around all over the formation.
He can play center.
A lot of fun things. Exactly.
Yep. You want versatility, you got it. All right, last one on here, Dave. This one's well, it doesn't mean anything for fantasy, but it was just fun to talk about, and I really wanted to do this one. The most successful Nepo baby, because this draft has a really good batch of Nepo babies in here, and I want to read off some of these for you, Dave, and for the audience. So we've got, Shedeur Sanders, who we already spoke about, the son of Deion Sanders. We've got Mason Taylor, son of Jason Taylor, and the nephew of Zach Thomas. Oronde Gadsden, the second, son of Oronde Gadsden, the first. And then Trevor Etienne, the brother of Travis Etienne. It's not really Nepo baby, but like Nepo brother. Luke Lachey, who is the son of what's the
is
older?
It Jim Lachey, I believe?
Jim Lachey, that's what it was. Yeah. Yep. Jim Lachey. And then we've got Moose Muhammad.
Yeah.
Who is the son of Muhsin Muhammad, former Panthers wide receiver. So
former Bears receiver. And Panthers, but
yeah,
I always think of him as a Bear.
I always think of him as a Panther. So, yeah, stalemate. Okay, so most successful Nepo baby to come out of this class will be who?
It's just got to be Mason Taylor. We've talked about this guy a lot. Just off the charts athleticism, such a fluid athlete. He just, alongside his peers at the NFL Combine, just looked like he was playing at a different speed. Fast, fluid, good hands, still just 20 years old, ton of room to develop. So yeah, that's the easy choice for me here. A guy who was, a projected day 3 pick a couple of months ago, and now I'm talking about him as a first rounder. I'd be shocked if he makes it outside of round 1.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I'd be shocked if he makes it out of round 1, but I said this on our athletes, the elite athletes episode that we did, where I said that Mason Taylor might be the most NFL ready tight end out of this prospect group. And it's because he can just do everything. He's a savvy route runner. He's got great hands, good blocker. He's got the NFL bloodlines. He knows what it takes to win in the NFL. He's also the player that I picked for this category as well as most successful Nepo baby. I think he's one of these guys that he's going to get drafted and start immediately on day 1. And there will not be a lot of catch up to do. Tight end ends up being one of the hardest positions to get into in the NFL because you have to learn how to block. You have to learn how to understand the calls and the blitz coverages and things that are changing there from the quarterback. And he's been at a big time pro factory essentially at LSU there, where they make just excellent pass catchers that are ready for the NFL. LSU and Ohio State, man, those are the 2 places that just make pass catchers. And you got to think dad and uncle have told him everything he needs to know for the NFL. Yep. And when you've got this size, you've got this speed, you got the skill set, and you got the numbers that back it up. Mason Taylor, I think he ends up going probably early 2nd round just because there are teams with other needs. But it wouldn't surprise me, like you said, if he does end up sneaking into the 1st round.
Yeah, I think the two teams that I really like, neither of them really have a pressing need for tight end right now. But we've heard the Ravens talking about potentially wanting to get out of the Mark Andrews contract and for them to
Yep.
take Mason Taylor, where they can kind of have Isaiah Likely be that short-term bridge and then trade Mark Andrews. That would make a lot of sense. And also the Kansas City Chiefs, who only have 2 years left remaining on Travis Kelce's contract, but we've already seen that decline start to happen pretty rapidly. I think for him to sit in a tight end room with Travis Kelce for the next year or two, kind of learn some things from him, would just set him up for an even brighter NFL future. So I really like those late first round landing spots as a potential landing spots for Mason Taylor.
Almost every single one of those teams towards the end of the first round, the Rams, the Ravens, the Commanders, the Chiefs, and the Eagles all
They'd all
have
be
needs
beautiful.
at tight end.
Yeah,
All
and
have
we're
needs
already
at
hearing
tight end.
the Eagles want to get out of the Dallas Goedert contract, so it
Yep.
makes sense for them to trade Dallas Goedert for a day 3 pick and then bring in Mason Taylor. I could see him landing with a lot of those teams, and those teams picking at the end of the first. They're smart teams that are picking down there for a reason, and they usually make smart picks, and Mason Taylor would be
Yep.
a smart one.
Yeah. It's a guy that's just going to be able to contribute day one. Well, Dave, I think it's going to be a wrap for us. This was fun. We did, let's see, most successful Nepo baby, most likely to be a Swiss Army knife player, most likely to be a 30-30 quarterback, most likely to be a league winning handcuff, most likely to become a meme, most likely to get traded after their rookie season, most likely to be a bust, and the fantasy rookie of the year. This was a good one. And Dave and I are going to be back again on Wednesday, where we're going to be having a dueling mock drafts episode. And Dave recently published his mock draft. Mine will be going up later today. By the time you watch this, it'll be probably published. If not, go and check it out, footballguys.com. And well, Dave, as always, we want to thank everybody for watching or listening all the way through. For myself, for Dave Kluge, we'll see you next time. Adios.